Welcome back, folks, to another exciting episode. And actually, we're going back to the series of the legends of musky fishing. And folks, we got a special guest for you today. Very excited to do this one. Have been wanting to do this for a couple of years now. No doubt. Robbie, this is going to be interesting.
This is gonna be fun. Mr. James Lindner is here. Thank you so much for you know, you could be fishing right now and for redfish, but you decided to sit on the couch and chat muskies and your life story, kind of how you got started or fishing in general, we should say. But thank you
Sure.
for your time, James.
Absolutely. No, it's my pleasure. No question about it. I've worked with you guys for a lot. I've always found it pleasurable to the chances I've gotten to fishing with you guys and both Little Lee. We spent some pretty interesting times in the boats at different times. Yeah.
For
Awesome.
sure. Well, before we dive into it, we just want to give a quick shout out. I myself and the rest of the crew, other than Robbie and Heidi, will be at the Minnesota Muskie Expo, and that's going to be on March 10th, 11th, 12th, and that is in Minneapolis at the Warner Coliseum, Minnesota State Fairgrounds. So make sure you check into that. I will have all the hot new Lee lures there. We'll have some ninjas, we'll have some heart attacks, and of course, it's just a super quality show. Paul Hartman, that runs it there, puts on an amazing event with, I don't know how many muskie booths are there. There got to be, I don't know, there's hundreds. There's a ton of muskie booths. This is the big one. So if you can make it to this one, make sure you stop on out. Looking forward to seeing all you guys out there. So then again, that's March 10th, 11th, 12th. And we'll see you there. Okay, enough with all that hoopla. Let's dive into Mr. James Lindner. It's so awesome to have you on here. We are so appreciative of this. And so, by the way, first question. Whereabouts are you right now? What are you up to?
My wife and I actually we have to take a hiatus out of the cold country, and we come down here for a little bit, spend some time down in Florida. And right now, that's what I was out fishing redfish and sea trout today. Really, it's sort of a stellar day. Boy, they pull like banshees. So I hang out down in sort of northeast. It's actually in the panhandle of Florida right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
not way south. That's actually it still could be pretty cool around here, even during the 45-degree nights around here.
Sure.
Still,
Okay. Well, all right.
it was 70 degrees out today, and
Yeah, it's still better.
I got a sunburn.
What were they nibbling on?
They were biting on little swim baits, really lightweight swim baits, and you're casting over like these little hard oyster bars, and then
Okay.
turtle grass flats, and they come up and they feed. And right now, actually, this is high tide, like right now, and they come up and they feed up in these really shallow flats. So you're sort of sight fishing them,
Oh, sweet.
and casting and reeling the bait really fast over these flats. And they just smoke it when they hit it. They pull like banshees, boy. They pull,
Especially in the
really,
kayak.
they really pull hard. A kayak is a really
Yeah.
pretty good platform to fish out of. It really is.
Right.
So the fish are so spooky that if you have a boat up around them, they're really spooky boats. You know what I mean? You have to make really long casts. I'm using like a
Sure.
7 foot, a 7 foot or an 8/6 rod, something you can really launch a bait a long
Wow.
distance away from the boat. But when they pound it,
I,
they just crunch it, man. When they hit it, it's really fun.
I know you even shared a few pictures with me the other night of your redfish expeditions. Maybe we can flash a couple of those even on the screen here.
Yeah.
James Lindner kayak fishing. We haven't seen it on the show before, so
That's awesome.
But boy, they're tough. There's another one of my favorites down here is black drum, which grow considerably
Oh, yeah.
larger than them, which I've caught them up to like 25 to 35 pounds.
Sure.
Really big long fish. Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's cool.
Well, why don't we dive into this, and we'll go all the way back to the wee infant of James Lindner. How did you get started in fishing? What was your first fishing experiences as a kid?
It was actually fishing with both my father and uncle. And at that point in time, we were living in Franklin Park, Illinois, but we would go up to my great Al's it'd be my great grandmother's cabin on Grindstone Lake in Hayward, Wisconsin. And actually, Al, when he was a kid, he actually went up there a lot in his teen years, hung around up there, and actually started guiding muskies and guiding as a whole, and actually just really got into fishing. That's where it really started at. Actually, there, my grandmother and my grandfather never really fished. It was actually my uncle, one of my uncles, or I should say one of Al's uncles, actually got him into fishing, which actually inspired him. And then it inspired, to take us, obviously, when we were growing up. We went up there a lot. I remember we were fishing, this is years and years ago. We were on a lake right next to Grindstone Lake. It's called Johnson Lake. We're throwing plastic worms, and I hooked a bass where my father thought it was like a state record. It was like a 10-pounder or something like that. The fish actually jumped off by the side of the boat. My dad grabbed the rod grabbed the rod when he saw it. I mean, this is when we were really, really young, and I'm not kidding you. It was like a state record.
It was a huge one, huh?
Wisconsin state record muskie. But we used to fish on a lot of those lakes up there, Round and Coudray, and do the flowages, drifting those various rivers, and do a lot of different fishing, which really sort of got us into fishing as a whole, at a very, very young age. At that point in time, we were actually building, my uncle and my father were building a Lindner tackle manufacturer, in which they actually made small, like, bucktail jigs, and made actually some of the first made inline musky spinner baits, all different types of things. I mean, from years, this is many, many, many years ago.
Yeah.
No, but from there, we actually moved to Wisconsin, and we moved to the Rhinelander area, and we lived there for about a year and a half or so. And we fished on Lake George over there, which actually there was right next to it. It was really interesting. There was this guy who was our next door neighbor. His name was Hickory Campbell, and he used to catch mussels off the dock. And he'd catch
no kidding,
on floats and suckers off the dock. Hickory Campbell. But the weird thing about what Hickory Campbell used to do, he'd kill all the muskies, cut their heads off, and nail them to a tree. I'm serious.
That's what they would do.
Like stacked, like some of the trees in the background had a bunch of musky skeletons heads
just a boneyard.
Trees, and they weren't very big fish. You know what I mean? But it's just sort of something that we remember years ago,
right?
Years ago, but.
At my family's cabin, they
there.
do that.
My dad was a draftsman, and then we ended up moving to Wisconsin, or not Wisconsin. We moved to Minnesota, and that's about when we really got into fishing. Then at that point in time, Al and Ron wanted to actually buy a resort.
Okay.
And they were going to start a resort and guiding, and that's what they did. They moved to. That's why they based in the Brainerd Lakes area, because of the quality of the fisheries. Is so many different big lakes, and they ultimately started Lindy Tackle Manufacturing Company. About that time, at the part of the Lindy's years, when they just started the company at Lindy Tackle, I was actually shooting still photography. But when I went to college for a period of time, and then I actually started guiding in Canada throughout the summers, which was really sort of an inspiring time for me to
really
garner a love for angling, where I spent so much time on the water. I almost spent like 90 days straight guiding every day. It was always intriguing, because they'd always the guy who ran the resort, he'd get these guides, and what they were actually college students from Winnipeg. And we were on a pretty big lake. This is on Atiqua Lake. This lake was probably 65 miles in length. And early on, I'd have to go find the guides because they were lost on the lake. I'm serious. They would get lost out on this lake. I'd have to go find our guide.
No GPS.
No GPS. Yeah.
Well, I'd have to go run them around and sort of train them in. But
that's funny.
Time up there fishing for a wide variety of different fish species, which was really cool in the fact that we actually had, I think we had like 12 different portage lakes. And these were like virgin fisheries. I mean, you go in there, and the northern pike and walleye fishing was just stellar. It was just unbelievable fishing. As I said, we actually had our own private musky lake. It was called Musky Lake. we had lake trout, you know what I mean? So I had a chance to really fish for a lot of different fish species in a lot of different conditions, you know what I mean? Where you really learned a lot when you spend that much time on the water. It was always really, really intriguing, you know, especially to learning Canadian lake, you know, the pulse of Canadian lakes. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
And that was obviously a shield deal.
yeah.
Big rock bars and
Yeah, oh
whatnot.
yeah, Achiqua Lake is a classic oligotrophic lake trout
Cool.
lake, really deep, deep water, low population of wildlife, really big,
Yep.
marginal, a fair population of pike, very large, very, very large pike, which was
What was the
what
what was the biggest fish that you caught in that time of guiding up there?
we would actually, that's a great question. Actually, the guy who was one of the older statesman guides that I used to, his name was John Terrio, and he taught me a lot about fishing for lake trout. But almost every year for the years that we were there, we actually had caught some of the largest lake trout caught in Ontario were caught out of that lake, you know, like 30 pounders, 35
Jeez.
pounders, you know, were caught out of there. We'd always catch them at the same time of the year. We'd always catch
Okay.
them in mid-July when the fish were all sandwiched down in deep water, and we'd be
Sure.
wireline trolling with three-way rigs and flutter spoons with
Okay.
Sure.
Wow.
Sutton spoons, three-way fishing in anywhere between 50 and 70 foot of water. And
Yep.
catch these really giant lake trout.
What's a length on a 35 pounder?
I don't know. They're really, those are the ones that are really, they're really bizarre fish
Tall,
because
right?
yes, exactly. They're not
Yeah.
even really that long. The whole thing, they have just tremendous girth. I mean, they
Yes.
look like
Yep.
they look like pigs, you know what I mean?
Right.
They're not really that long, but they have tremendous girth on them. It was always
Cool.
sort of intriguing, and I never understood why they're, because you'd actually have these fish that look really brilliant red in color.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Sure.
like redfin mackinaw, or you know what I mean. They were very red in color, but the
Like
Okay.
superior.
but the big ones were always the gray ones that were really gray in color. The silvery ones were the real giants that we caught.
Sure.
But I got
Huh.
a really cool big pike. I'd get on really fabulous big pike
Oh,
out in
how cool.
midsummer or late summer. We'd get those really low pressure in there, and what I'd do is get up on the tops of these main lake sunken humps and throw big spinner baits out on these jigging spinner baits out on these humps for really
Okay.
big pike throughout this late summer. Late summer, you get those low pressure where you get that really clouds and overcast really push down, and I'd get on some, you know, just fabulous big pike bites up there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like mid 40s or better.
Oh no, yeah, you'd catch fish, yeah, big 40s, you know, really
Mhm.
big Canadian pike, yeah, big,
Gosh,
but yeah, big, pretty good sized ones, yeah, yeah,
that's so cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that'll start the fishing bug off, right?
Yeah, it did. It
Fishing
really
some
got me
kid.
hooked into it. And then I came back from there. And actually, the weird thing was about that time, they had just sold uh, Lindy Tackle Manufacturing to ESB, or Electric Storage Battery. And Dad and Al started to, well, we were going to do something else. They got into the television production because we actually had the our you know, the television show
Magazine.
promoting Lindy Tackle Manufacturing. So that's
Sure.
how we actually started into the fishing publishing business more
Okay.
in the TV side of things. We used to actually shoot. I used to shoot a Canon Scubic and 16 millimeter film. We used to
Hmm.
use film cameras at that point in time, and that's where I actually got into the production business. Was about that time when we started doing all the production. From there, we went to from 30 or 16 millimeter film. Then we went into video, et cetera, and went through the many generations
Changes.
of different for various formats, which I keep on going backward in time. Daniel keeps on, because we keep on archiving this stuff, and we have to keep
Oh, I'm sure.
upgrading all these different formats. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You VHS, and you know, you go through all these years.
Do a CD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, CDs and mini DV and DV cam,
Incredible.
and you know what I mean? And
Well,
disc, I mean, it's just amazing. Yeah, and the quality of the cameras today is just like, holy mackerel.
and I'm sure the weight was a little different on some of those cameras.
Oh no, they were really big, heavy cameras. And I know we used to shoot muskie shows, and I would be
Guys holding on it.
for 3 days. holding the camera, and this is where you couldn't roll backward. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I'd have to sit there, and you're rolling 3 days following Doug Stange and Doug Johnson on Lake of the Woods, waiting for a bite. And actually, I got a lot of really cool footage, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, I knew where the fish was going to come from because we had actually had follows, you know what I mean? So you knew you were in a pretty good area.
Anticipation.
So, you know, rolling, or Doug Johnson would say, yeah, you might want to roll right now. We're right in the next 5 casts. We
Right.
might get one right here.
Yeah, that's
But,
awesome.
but
So
I've
you're
got a
the
question
Yeah,
about
go for it,
Lindy tackle.
Yeah.
What was the first Lindy tackle item that you can remember that was at a production, say, scale? Was it a jig? Was it the Lindy rig?
no,
What
it was the Lindy rig. The Lindy rig.
Okay.
The Lindy rig,
Okay.
we actually started that we started that before we even got to Minnesota, that the whole walking sinker. And it was like a derivation from Bill Binkelman's Nightcrawler Secrets, which he used to do a lot of split shotting with live night crawlers. But what it was taking a step further, like so many different things in angling. You're taking the concept and modifying the concept, so you're fishing in deeper water. All of a sudden, we're starting to use electronics in deeper water conditions, where you're sitting there, where you're taking a live bait rig or a Nightcrawler Secret and just putting heavier weight on it, and now we're fishing deeper structure. You know what I mean? With depth finders, you know, and in the fact that you can go drive around and figure out the shapes of these underwater structures, which ultimately got turned into back trolling and a wide variety of different concepts in angling. You know what I mean? That a lot of people still use to today. You know what I mean?
For sure.
That's cool.
The Lindy rig. So how did they mold the first sinker?
The Lindy
walking
rig,
sinker.
I remember very clearly to this day. And we were actually, my dad was big on plaster of Paris, and we'd make a clay walking sinker, and then take plaster of Paris and make a mold. Okay,
Sure.
then you take it out, and we actually did the prototypes. We were pouring lead into these plaster of Paris molds, is what
Makes
we
sense.
did. Yes, which were obviously not very durable, but you know, you can make a couple of them, and that
Make
was
them,
about it. You know what I mean? But I remember we actually making a wide variety of different things like that. My dad used to tinker with it, and he'd have all this big mess, and you know, plaster Paris and mold and pouring sinkers, and it was just unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
When I was a kid, I still have burns on my legs from pouring sinkers in
Really?
our basement, which I'm not
molten
sure
lead.
I don't know if it would have been OSHA approved to actually
Oh.
have pouring sinkers, lead sinkers in a basement with 7
Not much
kids
ventilation.
above. And we
Yeah.
got all these kids it was like a sweatshop in the basement. My mom,
The Linder sweatshop.
exactly, we're pouring sinker. Me and my brother were pouring lead sinkers to make Lindy rigs, and then making the
Snells.
Snell snap swivels, which was the
Oh
absolute
my
worst
gosh.
job in the world. These snap swivels, they'd give you a giant bag of them, and you make $25, and you'd say, "Well, that's a really good deal." Until you started making a snap swivel, and you clip them together. You take the snap and hook it to the swivel with a pair of pliers, and you have this bag of thousands of them. But
Oh my.
we'd
That's
actually have to
funny.
literally hand wrapping them. And this actually started in our basement.
Wow, I did not know that. That's very cool.
On Gull Lake and in Wilson Bay, and we used to do a lot of the prototypes. Actually, like we had this other bait which was called the Lindy's. It was a spinner, or it was like a spin jig, and it was a fabulous fish catcher, which was just a spinner. And what we do is go out on Gull Lake and you pull suckers around. Boy, did we catch big pike with that thing! All different fish with that. The spin rig, it was called.
Sure.
Lindy spin
Okay.
rig. Yeah. At that point.
Yeah. What were maybe a couple of the other Lindy products way back in the day?
Oh, we made some plastic worms. Actually, one of the first, I think one of the first safety pin spinner baits for musky safety pin spinner baits was designed by my dad. Actually,
Nice.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
First safety
cool.
pin. You mean the big profile safety pin spinner
Sure.
bait,
Yeah.
spinner baits? Yeah. And they actually ended up shooting shows on them up on I think Little Boy with Ted Capra caught some really big ones on those first spinner baits. And they also made another really good uh, inline bait, which was a what was that called? Not the swiper, the musky. What was that thing called? It was an inline musky bait, and it had like a minnow-shaped head, but it had a fluted blade on it. And it was a really good bait, really good bait, good inline small bucktail at that point in time. Yeah.
Okay.
It was really
Reminds me of the old Mepps
Comet.
loose socks
Lusa. Okay.
with
yeah.
the weight forward musky spinner they used to have.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah,
Sure.
that's what it was. Yeah, but we'd actually have to do the same thing. We were tying up bucktails. We'd have big piles of calf tails. We'd actually go to the stockyards in Chicago and get these big boxes of calf tails. As you know,
Oh my
stunk. What this was. I'm serious.
That's crazy. That's so
What?
cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, it is. It's sort of intriguing. My dad
Wow.
was a really sort of he was a really interesting animal. He really got into things, and when he got into it really deep, really deep. But
That's
that was
awesome.
the Lindy's, you know what I mean? And we actually sold that company and got into in fishermen, which was, really a number of really informative years. That was probably one of the more informative years in angling too. Which was about the same time bass really came into being at that point in time. You know what I mean?
So like early 70s, or
Yeah.
when are you talking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, yeah, that was a really revolutionary time in angling. Just the whole algebra of angling and understanding the nature of fish, understanding seasonal movements, and it wasn't one of those things of any type of luck. It had nothing to do with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding the individual lake classification systems. You know what I mean? In different bodies of water, reservoirs, there's highland impoundments for lowland impoundment to natural lakes, etc. But
Sure.
So you started with the tackle company, basically, you guys, and then it kind of morphed into. You said it went right to media as far as like producing content to prove, each of the tackle items. Right? It was the magazine that wasn't in play yet. You were actually filming prior to the magazine, correct?
you're right
Is that kind of-
about well, we were actually it was at the tail end of they were all actually gotten a little bit into publishing at that point in time because they had to publish a catalog, and they were actually doing some amount of writing for different fishing publications, Facts of Fishing, and who else, a variety of different publishing. My dad was writing different things, obviously, to promote and sell baits.
Lindy tackle, yeah.
Right.
Educate and sell more of these baits. But that was their first, like, I guess, footstep into the production business and the publishing industry, because they first started that out, and we actually he somehow, my dad got a bunch of mailing lists from some guys, and they actually sent it out, and it was really intriguing, and it was the impetus of the in fishermen. This was when they were first segments, or I should say study guides. There was no advertising. My dad was good with, he had this concept. There was absolutely going to be no advertising. Obviously, that went out the door pretty quick. But the interesting thing was when they went out and did this mailing list, and they did this in-depth mailing list to these publications. There was so many different people that were interested in learning about angling. We were just they actually, and I forgot what the price point was for the first study guides or what they were, but they generated like a lot of money in a relative period of time, and just based on these various mailing lists that they had gotten, which was really sort of intriguing. Which actually,
people were starving for information.
That's absolutely, and it's at the same time when BASS was just starting to move fishing.
Sure. People were making a living doing it.
Yes.
Is that when the tournaments really started?
Yeah.
Was it early 70s as well?
Yeah, okay. Actually, Al was fishing even the tournaments before the BASS.
Okay.
There was other tournaments going on, national tournaments that were started— at that time. Yeah. So.
Gotcha.
the idea in Fisherman Magazine.
Yeah, in Fisherman Magazine, and that went for 20 years, and they eventually started a wide variety. Obviously, in Fisherman Magazine itself, the In Fisherman television show, numerous publications from, you know what I mean, and a kids camp. They'd camp fish for a number of years, which was a labor of love. It was something that we lost a lot of money doing, and we did it for several years. And finally, we had to see one of our chief financial officer looked at us, or looked at my dad and Al, said, "I don't think you should be doing this. This is costing us a really
Sure.
lot of money." You know what I mean? And it was always trying to garner some type of sponsorship dollars associated with the kids camp. But the intriguing thing about that whole thing about that camp fish,
Mm-hmm.
the number of years that we ran it, the interesting thing is how many people are still in the industry today from camp fish, or in various, or actually
Sure.
grew up running camps in Alaska, you know, in
Really? Wow. How
reps
cool.
in the industry. I mean, they ultimately, that camp, you would not even believe it, how many kids
Unreal.
actually
Wow.
came from that camp and actually started
Went
Making
on
a
into
living.
business.
yeah,
Sure.
went on to have a living in the fishing industry because of
Wow.
that camp, which was really sort of inspiring, you know.
Absolutely.
see
That's
that.
Yeah,
that's
I know
awesome.
because and Troy keeps on wanting to do some smaller versions of that. Actually, to this day,
Sure.
he's run a couple of smaller ones, yeah, of camp
Mm-hmm.
fish. But then
So when did
we also started the PWT, the Professional Walleye Trail
yeah.
tour, which actually garnered a tremendous amount of information and knowledge of you know, angling, you know, big water angling, got into that, you know, all the
Right.
Great Lakes fisheries, you know, and that whole
Wow.
thing,
Yeah.
you know, the Missouri River systems, you know what I mean, different techniques and different things. Yeah,
Across the whole region, yeah.
yeah,
Makes sense. I
In the
mean,
country.
that is crazy to think about, really.
yeah.
So
How
when
that's-
did the magazine officially start? Do you have a can you pin that down?
Um, that would have been, let's see,
Roughly.
it would have been 80. Would it be 1980, or would it be? Now I'm trying to let's see.
Yeah.
We I mean, I got to go backward in time because because I left in 2000, and so then it would have been 22 years before that. It would have been 78,
Sure.
Makes
78,
sense.
78. I think it would have been 79 if you actually had to an accurate. That would be an accurate figure. Yeah, and then we left. I left in Fisherman because Al had a sort of no compete contract, and I started another production company, which is Lindner Media Production, and actually got a big contract to work with Rapala to do a video catalog and all the Rapala baits. It was one of my first.
That was the first gig.
Accounts.
Along with that, the other one was working with Pros Pointers, which was Scott and Marty Galorvigan, who ultimately
Oh,
started Wired to Fish, which were my
Okay.
first clients for about 10 years too. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
well, James, I'm here to tell you now that in Fisherman, whether it's the magazine or the former television show, is why I'm here right now talking to you today. So
Is that right?
Catalyst.
Yeah.
that's absolutely why I decided to do at the age of 10 or 11 years old. I was like watching, I was taping in Fisherman in Fisherman television
Yeah.
on a VHS player, and they were an hour-long show at that time, and I just could not wait for those shows. That was my entire winter, was waiting for those shows.
Absolutely.
And watching them over and over and over on
Wouldn't even
VHS
believe how
format.
much of a nightmare those were. We initially produced those
Oh,
down in
man.
Minneapolis, and how we produced those shows, it was like a craziness. We actually went in, I forgot it was down in Minneapolis, but we pre-recorded some bits and pieces of the show, and then we actually did the show live. In actually did
Wow.
it live, and then
Wow.
you're rolling in these videos, these pre-canned pieces in between, and it was unbelievable stressful. It was like unbelievable. It was like but then again, today's day and age, all these guys do it all the time. Other YouTubers like you guys just do it all the time. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
That's different.
It's a little different.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
editing.
yeah.
we're We're not talking
Well,
about tape, yeah.
Yeah.
well, I just wanted to say thank you
Well,
because
no,
that's, I
you're
mean,
welcome.
that's how I got started and why, I just pretty much said that's what I want to do for a living. I want to share fishing with people,
We
and
actually
that's
we were blessed
that's
to
it.
work with a lot of really tremendously talented people that had actually that same love of the sport. You know what I mean? When you look at the group of people that we were working with at that time, anybody from Doug Stange, who was you know obviously writing skills, um, Steve Quinn from the bass world, all different world, Steve Hoffman. Dan
Larry,
Dave Sanda, Larry Dahlberg. I mean, it's a whole cast of
Just
characters.
incredible.
Each one
Yeah.
of them had their own strengths that really helped them be successful. You know what I mean? It was because of all, even Al and Ron will tell you, they're not smart enough to have done all that. All that it was a lot of hard work, but a
Team.
lot of alternate, very very talented individual people that really had this exact same love for the sport and passion for it, and the educational end of it too. Yeah,
everybody had their role.
yeah, yeah. It's which is really really fun. Actually, the weird thing is, I just spoke to Larry recently, actually, just the other day, Dahlberg. Yeah,
Oh,
he's
nice.
been on some really good musky bites as of recently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah, it really has. Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, him and
interesting.
Chris
yeah,
Willen
yeah. I should.
got into some nice ones.
Yeah, I could say, I bet.
Yeah, they did. I know. I don't know where that. I won't say that, but yeah, wherever
Yeah,
that was
we
going
can
on, wherever that is happening, I want to get in on that activity.
we can
No doubt.
discuss this later.
Yeah. So,
That's awesome. Um, yeah, that's cool. What a cool time to, be a part of it. How different, like, I mean, really, it's not that long of time how different the sport changed to where we're
Oh yeah.
at right now.
it's stunning. It's
50 years?
Oh,
I
it's
mean,
absolutely
not
stunning. I mean, what to me is how it just keeps on accelerating. You know what I mean?
nuts.
From the electronics and technology, not only electronics, it's every different aspect, from rods and reels, presentation specific rods that are really finely tuned for that given presentation. Line. I mean, a lot
Line,
of
I
people don't
bet.
even understand the dynamics of line. You know what I mean? The importance of like braided line for, like what these guys are doing right now as we speak. There's a bunch of the bass boys are down on Okeechobee, where we used to go do that with monofilament line, trying to land the big ones out of those cane beds, which is impossible because you'd lose half of them you'd catch, because you'd have 20% stretch even with, 40 pound,
Yep.
30-pound mono you couldn't even
Right.
put on a reel, because it's so thick.
That's
You know what I
hilarious.
mean?
Trying to
You just
cast
look
it.
just
Yeah.
look at that, and then all of a sudden you start putting the electronics into it, and it's just like, holy mackerel! It's just stunning. It's really stunning, and it just keeps on going faster and faster. The one thing that I have always, one of the pieces of equipment that are not pieces of equipment, it's something that it's never has really, to me, that has really super revolutionized angling, is mapping, high end mapping. Because when you
Yep.
get it, even forward facing sonar, side image, down imaging, all these other things are add ons to that map. So the
Yep.
map, especially these high-end resolution maps, where they got these, like the Hummingbird's got these new VX maps, you know what I mean, where you have multiple color
Six
coding.
inch increments
Oh
now?
yeah, no, but you can color gradients, different
Yeah.
portions of it. So like the weeds, I can color all the weed lines from 5 to 12 foot of water. I can turn that green, and then I can turn another color. You know what I mean? So I can color code the lake, and once with a cursory knowledge of seasonal movements of fish and how they can speed the process, none of these other units, I can go find fish before I even go to the lake. With a
Yeah,
map, you can
absolutely.
do that. You know what I mean? Especially and they keep on getting better and better with all
Yep.
these maps. And I really, and the most revolutionary, because people will say, well, it's, you know what I mean? It's forward facing sonar, this or that, or
Yep.
down imaging. You know what I mean? But in my estimation, mapping, bar none, is the most revolutionary piece of equipment or technology,
Yeah,
in,
it's crazy.
associated with GPS technology, which is actually, you know, from their military, you know, mapping in military with GPS coordinates. It gives them the ability. The military's paying for this stuff, you know, for us to use it. We're just borrowing it. You have to
to catch fish.
Yeah, this technology, you know, and they go back and refine spots and go out in these big monstrous bodies of water safely and return safely. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You know, James, I can remember in 2004, in the fall of 2004, when I spent the first several days I ever did on Mille Lacs Lake. We had basically just a paper map showing 5-foot deep Garrison Reef, which is like a mile plus long reef.
Yeah.
I had no idea where we were, but interestingly, that, you know, in that trip, I decided, okay, I'm actually going to move to Minnesota and come catch these fish every day. And you know what made that possible? Mapping.
Yeah.
Had a map card that I could plug into a GPS that I got that winter on my new boat for 2005, and I was able to drive up and find a 5-foot high spot on a mile-long reef.
The dog bone on Garrison Reef. How many big boys?
That's right. How many 50 inchers we caught on that waypoint? Just amazing.
Yeah.
But like you said, the map card. That is what allowed me to move, come to a new lake that I basically had not fished, and, you know, realistically make a heck of a living catching big muskies there.
I know, that's what, you know, I still get a chance to do seminars. I actually just came back from an Iowa show on the prior to coming down here, and I'm heading up to Toronto Thursday for 3 days up there. And part of the thing, it's always intriguing because people are always interested in little techniques and lures and presentations, you know, some stellar breakthrough, but almost any presentation I do, I actually started off, one of the most important things I can do is share with you actually is how to use your electronics to go find fish seasonally and understanding the nature of the seasonal movements of fish, because that's where it boils down to. If I put anybody in your boat and you're going to drive with, you're going to catch them because you found them. You got to go out there and utilize your technology and the ability to go out in a given body of water and find them seasonally. And every time you go out on that lake, you have to understand those fish are moving. They're in a seasonal progression is going on. They're just constantly moving. And that's for you as anglers to understand that, in the ability to use your electronics wisely, you know, to their full potential. And then you become really, really dangerous. You know what I mean? I think so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what you guys and your family and staff did to a T, was teaching us really how to understand each individual species and their seasonal movements. And I mean, really, you guys pioneered that and brought it to the masses.
Yeah.
And the impact was just astronomical.
You know what's super cool about you know, in the fact that we were blessed to like you were saying, for all these different species. And for me personally, every different species of fish has its own unique personality that ultimately makes you a better angler for other fish. And let me explain you what I mean by that. Like bluegills, you know, and even when bluegills are really hot and active, the bait has to be moving at a slow speed. So it teaches you something about boat control. Using really light line, the difference between using 3-pound test and 8-pound test, and how many different bluegills, because they have, you know, fabulous monocular vision that are used to eating these microscopic copiopods and zooplankton in the water column.
Yep.
I mean, if you use a heavier line, they don't bite it, you know what I mean? So it teaches you even boat control, because if the boat is moving, you're blowing too fast, you won't catch the fish because the baits can't be moving that quick. You know what I mean? Musky fishing, you know what I mean? I would look at muskies. I mean, you know, do you how much do you finesse fish muskies? You know what I mean? What?
That was, I think I was gonna say, probably the thing that I think Robbie and I kind of keyed in on more so than a lot of the fishermen out there at the time, was fishing slow for muskies.
Yeah.
Finesse fishing muskies.
No, that was definitely our program.
Yep. Slow top water.
You got to remember me, Lee, to send you this article about why muskies don't bite.
Yeah, I read that.
Did you? Yeah, you did. Okay.
Really?
I did
Oh,
read
you
that.
did read that. But it was done with the little peanuts in some pond or something or another. Is that
They
Right.
interviewed them, the Muskies.
what's that?
They interviewed the Muskies.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I'd like to chat with one day.
Well, just muskies as a whole are one of those fish that classically, you don't really finesse fish them. They're very hard to
Yeah.
finesse because they're a peak top of the line predator. They these narrow feeding windows. You have to be there at the right time. And the whole idea, the whole concept, the Wendell's thinking on muskies, put a bucktail on and go over covered ground as fast as you can, and sooner or later one's going to bite it. You know what I mean? Which is a good idea. People ask me, well, how do you catch a muskie? It'd be really simple. Put a bucktail on it. Something you
Yeah.
can cast a long time and
Cast.
cast till it hurts.
Yep.
At some point in time, you'll be reeling it in. It's going to stop reeling. It's just the way those fish are. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I've went through different things trying to figure out how to finesse them, and I don't know if that's a good way to do it or not. But I mean, just every different fish that's like smallmouth bass. You look at a smallmouth bass; they're all over the road. They're really one of the coolest fish because you can catch them on microscopic hair jigs. Is the best bait to catch them during bug hatches by
Sure.
poking, throwing big jump baits. In deep water, and they're blowing them out of the water. You know what I mean? And they're everywhere in between, and they have such a really diverse personality and the way you can trigger them into biting, and like cat and mouse, and they're really intriguing fish. They're
Yeah. No,
fun
that's a good way
fish
to put it.
fish for just because of that sort of really different personality. Even walleyes, as much as like walleyes are like one of those fish that I don't like really fishing for them unless I'd go for big ones generally. I'll tell you the truth. I'm
That's
not. Well,
me
we'll put it
too.
this way.
Careful what you
No,
say
no.
here.
Well, I'd say I probably am not going to go fish for a bunch of eater walleyes. That
Yeah.
personally does not
Right.
intrigue me
Yep.
that much to go do that. I've caught enough eater walleyes, and I will do it every once in a while. They go get a bunch of eaters, and my
Yeah.
wife, and she likes eating them, but I just personally wouldn't do that. In my angling experience, I just wouldn't do that much anymore. I actually go fish for exotic species. I've really been getting into catfishing. I love carp fishing. Carp are
Yeah.
unbelievable fish to catch. And actually, I'm not catching them with bait. I'm catching them with, hair jigs and stuff like that, where you're
Cool.
bite fishing with like bone fishing, and you pass shooting them and stuff. It's really fun, really fun. Yeah.
They're smart critter.
They're very, 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 very weary, especially big ones like those ones on Mille Lacs Lakes. And you used to see those big ones in Mille Lacs Lake.
Wow.
Those are really tough fish to catch, boy.
I didn't know they were in there. Wow.
Oh no, there's giants in there.
There's got to be some 30-pounders,
Oh
right?
yeah, not even question about that. Yeah,
Jeez.
but you might catch them just like pass shooting hair jigs, little 1-inch grubs and little hair jigs about this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, that's fun.
sorry, it's just like bone fishing. It really is.
Well, it's like the one time we were fishing together for that the land of
Oh,
10,000 fish.
Yeah.
For the suckers, that was really interesting. Sight fishing them.
The big red horse.
Yeah, the big red
Red horse,
horses
yeah,
up on the sand flats. The drone footage was so cool of that.
Yeah, that was. That's what I mean.
That's
Every
awesome.
one of those fish. It's like I love fishing for all different fish.
Oh yeah.
Every different fish
It's like-
has its own unique characters. That actually ultimately makes you a better angler as a whole. I mean,
Right.
there's so much of different knowledge that can crosses geographical and species boundaries, and that's then you're really a real animal fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It kind of it would definitely shoot yourself in the foot only fishing for muskies. I mean,
True.
it's definitely better to be fully rounded. No, it makes sense. I wish I was a better walleye angler for that reason.
What's that?
I wish I was a better walleye angler for that reason. I think I'd be a better muskie fisherman too.
Yeah.
So going back to the magazine, let's hear what maybe your favorite part of that era of Lindner Media and or in fisherman, or just that whole in fisherman era. What was maybe your favorite? I don't know, favorite parts of it? Something that really sticks out, you really enjoyed that.
We sort of touched on some of it, in the fact I actually got to travel to obviously different places. I mean, I traveled
Hmm.
from South America to northern Canada and Northwest Territories and everywhere in between. But one of the coolest things is I got to fish and working with all those guys, Dan Sura, Dave Sanda, uh, Doug Stange, Al Lindner, Ron Lindner, all these guys, and you're working in this collaborative effort of knowledge and gathering information. And it was a huge vacuum of gathering information out of anything. I would say that would be it. It'd be actually working with, and each one of them had. I mean, Dahlberg. I mean, to go fishing with Dahlberg is obviously he's a really interesting individual. There he is. He's a really fabulous fisherman. He really is for any different species of fish that swims. I mean, you name it. I mean, Larry doesn't really generally go out with guides. He goes out and finds them and figures them out himself wherever. And he's traveling around the world to the Eden Sea or
Crazy.
somewhere, it's a crazy spot, it figured
Yeah.
that's what, what I mean, to go do that. And I always liked that doing that too. Actually, early on, actually, even prior to even Larry just got into that stuff when he went down there with me and my brothers. Would go down to the Bahamas and Bimini, and we'd go out, and we'd never got guides. We'd bring our own boats down there and figure it out
Oh,
ourselves.
cool.
And it was always interesting.
Would you take a ferry over to them with a boat and trailer?
No, we drive down to Miami and drive across over to Bimini. Yeah,
That's
I'm
awesome.
serious. Yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah, I'm serious.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
That's
wasn't a Pro
awesome.
V, wasn't it?
it was the Tai, the London.
Tai
no
rolling
kidding.
through the ocean. Wow, that
Tai.
is so
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah,
Unreal.
yeah. Then you'd learn a lot of different things. And why have they always had all these weird saltwater knots, FG knots in Alberta? You figured that out soon. Because all of a sudden
Fast.
these fish would be stripping all your line off, breaking all your breaking catches. It's like, we have to figure out some new tactical. We need bigger reels, bigger, stronger.
Undergunned.
All of a sudden we'd be hitting these wahoo, and all of a sudden they'd be tearing you a new one. It's just like, yeah,
Yeah, I've definitely fallen in love with the salt. That's for sure.
yeah. They really pull hard. Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow, I didn't know. That's cool.
They're so
Okay, so go ahead.
we went on so many different to point one given point in time, and there's it's just so many different memories when you're looking back at different places and times and people, and it was incredibly fun. It really is. It still is incredible fun to this day. Yeah,
No, yeah.
Right.
I'm learning today. I learned some different things today. Yeah.
That's so
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, how shallow they are. It's unbelievable. I mean, then I figured out actually a boat is not a good thing for these fish.
Yeah.
No, because they're really
That's
so spooky, and you're better off to pull up and then you just tether down, and then I wade and walk around, and
sure.
they're like these redfish because they're in
Yeah.
calf deep, knee deep water. Yeah.
Still learning. That's cool.
Yep.
No, it's never ending.
Okay, so I've got one here. So let's have you tell us about the musky bug. When you caught it, how you caught it. Let's hear the story here.
Oh, that was back to the Hickory Campbell over in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. My brother and I, at that point in time, we were quite young at that time. We were probably 8 or 10 years old, and we actually had these baits. So it's called what was that? The head and vamp. And then there was
Sure.
a number of different baits that we would have. That my brother Willie, and I would go out and musky fish on Lake George in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. And at that point in time, we actually had my dad actually had the kids. We had like this little wooden boat, literally a wooden, like it looked like a wooden 315 Lund boat, the old fiberglass like that, except it was a wooden boat. It was wood.
Weird.
Okay. And it was actually a pretty good fishing platform. It was wide open, I mean, just the whole thing.
Yeah.
Big flat thing. And you got a tiller engine on it. But that's initially when Willie and I would go out there and we'd throw, the other bait was the Cisco topper. This
Sure.
Cisco topper.
Oh, yeah.
And that vamp. Willie's big favorite. He was really big on throwing it like a jerk bait. And we actually had those little weird short musky rods that were really too stiff. And I don't even did we have we might have early on. I don't even know if we should have had good what we would have had good broad
Yep.
braid at that point in time. I think it was
Yep.
line in bait casting rods and or bait casting reels that really were not supreme casters at that point in time.
Like the handle would spin when you threw it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Real knuckle
Yeah, the
busters.
little tiny little white pearl handles. Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh.
You'd hook them and land them. I think at that point in time, that's when did the Fluger Supreme came out at that point in time, or one of the
Sure.
one of the bait casting rods. Yeah.
No anti-reverse on
No.
it. The handle just went backwards.
No.
That's funny.
Actually, I actually got really into musky fishing, probably actually up here when I started fishing on the Mississippi River. I actually got into it really because I used to live just south of Brainerd, and my buddy's house was right next to the park down there. So I would go down there and spent a lot of time fishing them down there where I started. It was really cool in the fact that at that point in time, there was nobody else fishing for them. And these were really natural fish. And they were very large, very large river fish, natural river fish, which was really sort of,
Wow.
and we had you got about, quite a few miles of water to fish and learn. And I actually put a lot of time there. And then actually at that point in time, I started fishing all the natural lakes around here, because at that point in time, there was none of the stocking programs. We only had a
Right.
relatively limited number of musky lakes. There was, you know what I mean? You'd have Cass, Leech, Little Boy, Ingridona.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There was a
Wabido.
very, very limited population of muskies fisheries in the state. You know what I mean? Where you look at today, well, we got a lot of them. They added over 115 different lakes to the current lakes in the state that contain muskies. Yeah. Which I don't know what we're doing right now with Mille Lacs. It's unfortunate that they turned that lake off, because that still could be maintained as one of the absolutely the most phenomenal
best lakes in the world. Yeah.
Lakes in the world. Did anybody even catch one out there this last year? I never heard about what the fall.
Not a lot.
What?
There is one. Yeah, Knutson got that giant.
Oh, did Knutson get another
Yeah.
one out there?
He got a big one. Yeah, I don't know how long was it. What, 50?
I did not even hear.
It was a 30-inch girth, but it was
Is that right?
It was a huge one. Yeah. Yep.
How many days did he spend on the water?
Oh, I'm sure of plenty.
A
lot.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was fun when there was quite a few of them in there. It was really quite fun. Lee and I actually would go out there and hunt them. That's when you'd make one pass across Garrison Reef, and you'd see 5 40-pounders on one pass, and they're different ones. They come in, they look like jet fighters coming in. They come in, they're like, "Whoa, look at the size
Big
of
blonde
that creature!" Yeah.
Ugh, gosh, what a special
all the
place.
days we spent on the water together, James, and we never did put a 50 in the boat. I know we hooked 2 for sure that were over 50.
Yeah.
But we just couldn't get them in the boat.
No, I mean when we were filming out there.
Right.
When we were filming, because I caught them obviously when we weren't filming. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I guess I
Exactly.
caught some other ones that we were filming in fishing or angling edge shows out there. Yeah. Yeah.
So going back to the Mississippi River, when you first started fishing the muskies out there, what was the 3 or 5 baits you used on that water?
Actually, one of my favorite baits was a bait called the DB06, a Bagley DB06. It's a crankbait. At one time, I was actually through a lot of Moldy's hog wobblers, topwater fishing, until I tore one in half, and then I got gun shy about one where a fish ate it and tore the bait in half.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I got sort of gun shy about that. What other baits?
Long A.
Yeah,
I know you liked fishing a long A.
Yep, bomber model A was also a really good bait, because we were fishing different. You're fishing those shallow flats throughout the summer months. During the summer, a lot of the fish are very, very shallow. I ended up working with the Department of Natural Resources, Jerry Yonkers, and I forgot how many of them we put tags in them, and he followed them for like a year and a half until the tags ran out. And I actually eventually caught a number of those fish that we had put those tags in. And most of the time when they'd go find them during the summer, they could go visually identify the fish. That's where they were.
Wow.
35 pounders,
Sit-
30 pounders, that they're 25 to 35 pounders, and there you could visually go see them with your eyes. That's how shallow water they were.
Oh my gosh.
You know.
Ugh.
But
How cool.
it was interesting what he told me, and the number of fish that was there was a real sort of spooky to me, in the fact because he told me that how many fish he thought was in the system, and at that point in time, I was fishing muskies really, really hard, and I actually calculated that I caught 1/3 of the population in my boat. The 1/3 of the population. In fact, really, how many fish were in there? I couldn't believe it. You know what I mean? Because I caught 120 of them. He says there's 300 in this, 300 adults in this pool, and I caught 125 that year. Just like, wow. You know,
wow, I mean, it's like, that's cool.
You know, that's a little scary in the fact that it goes to show you how
little
fragile.
Exactly how delicate those fisheries are, and even in those bigger natural lakes, and how many fish are really there, and how many fish are you be catching again, and you know how many times these fish are, how they keep on becoming harder and harder to be caught. I you know what I mean?
No, they're getting smarter every year.
Yeah, they are. That's what Jeremy says. The same thing. Jeremy says the same thing. You know, and since we actually sort of backed off on some of our Minnesota stocking, Jeremy's of course went back to old favorites.
Sure.
Canadian water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still, they caught some real whoppers this year too. Back up on Black Sewell, Wabagoon, Lake of the Woods. You know what I mean? Eagle. You know, those classic natural musky waters, which are. Those are really, I know, Lee, you haven't been back up there for a couple of years, have you?
It's been a very long time since I've been up there.
Well, you have a new boat. It should be there. We'll have set up we got to set up a mission to go up on Lac Sewell or one of those.
Lac Sewell, I would love to go back.
That would be
that lake. It is so big. It is just. I mean, it's one of those lakes where we keep on learning more. The more we go up there, the population is more spread than what I think other people really know about. It's based on because we've been expanding our
sure your milk run
different waters but you know what I mean, and there are muskies there. Yeah.
How cool. That's awesome.
That's where I caught my first 50 ever was September 6th, I want to say, of 2001. I got a 54.5 by 24 incher up there on a Stanley Musky Boss spinnerbait. I know you remember that.
Oh yeah.
The big rubber silicone skirts.
Those were good baits for that, especially for like Lac Sewell, where you got fishing those shallow weeds like that, where you got a lot of that junk weed. Actually, Wabagoon, that was a really good bait for Wabagoon too, because you're fishing that 4-foot, 5-foot cabbage beds in the real shallow. Yeah.
That was a Chamberlain Narrows fish I had caught. That was very memorable fish for sure.
Boy, there's some giants in that region. There's some really giants. I know Jared was up there filming. I don't know when it should be airing here soon. They got a 50 just there recently, or not this last year. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite at the time was in fisherman videos is when Al caught that monster on Lac Sewell, trolling the bomber long A.
Yep.
At Chamberlain up that way.
Yep.
That was a very memorable segment. That's what really got me to go there, basically.
Yeah, that was a cool trip. I think we shot 2 different shows. We shot a big pike piece, and then Doug another trolling piece. I think we were trolling bobbies or something. I think we were snap trolling along those like 45-degree rock banks, snap trolling real fast with bobby baits. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool
place.
Yeah, that's a fabulous. It's still to this day is a fabulous. I mean, it's so big and so massive.
Remote.
No matter how much you fish it, I mean, you could never spend the time to figure it out. You know what I mean? It's so big. It really is. It's incredibly big. Yeah.
So moving along to, let's dive into Lindner Media and the Angling Edge.
Yep.
You had a non-compete clause after the sale of InFisherman.
Yep, and then we started Lindner Media Productions, which we actually did a lot of and still to this day do a lot of commercial productions for different people, make commercials, which is always one of my actually favorite parts of the industry is making high-end commercials. Today's day and age, not a lot of sponsors are willing to spend that type of money to make those really high-end, uh, high dollar commercials. Yeah. But one part of it is still is my favorite, and I still work with it today. You were asking what's one of your favorite things to do. It's actually lure design techniques and lure design for making lures and doing the R&D, research and development with different products. And I work with a lot of my different marketing partners from Humminbird, Minn Kota. I actually had the first Ultrex trolling motor on my boat for a
Sure.
year before it was even used, and this whole spot lock feature. And I told them, boys, you better get the engineers ready, because just
Get-
that spotlight feature alone, that one thing, you'll sell it to every bass angler. Anybody who has a trolling motor wants that spotlight, guaranteed, no matter what. I
Yep.
mean, it's instantaneous. That's what I told them. And for the entire year, I'm taking it on and off my boat, and I'm even fishing bass tournaments at that point in time. And it's like, you know what I mean? Where I'm still, you know, after I take it off, I'm fishing a tournament. I'm going back up to the front of the boat to hit spot lock that isn't there.
That's funny.
But yeah, that was, you know, and even
Sure.
a lot of different tacklement, you know, baits with Rappalas. We work with a lot of different lure design with those guys, from top water baits to, you know, hard baits, jerk baits, crank baits, you know what I mean, during the designing lures and stuff like that. That's a really fun part of the of what I do to this day, you know. And right now we're producing I think 65, is it 65 television shows? I don't know. Let's see, 13 angling edge, 13, another 13 angling edge, 26 weeks of that, a 13-week one show, another 13-week Canadian show, which was the Ontario experience, which is going to be rebranded the Canadian experience, which is going to be another, which we're working on right now. And then we
Cool.
do a whole series on ice fishing, which is angling, then this whole angling buzz show itself, which is more or less what I tried to do with that, was more of a sports center and the more current information, what's going on right now. And it's a little bit of a different show where you got, well, obviously you guys have all been on that.
Yeah. Yep.
But, you know, so it keeps us busy, you know what I mean? We got 5 different guys editing and shooting almost all the time. 365 days a year, we're in the field shooting,
rolling
material for editorial content to feed the giant monkey,
the beast,
as fast as you can shovel it. It's eating up information, you know.
Yep.
You know, in today's day and age, I think you can go a lot more vertical, you know what I mean? We're a lot more vertical on your editorial content is that seems to do a lot better these days, because maybe it's because of YouTube too. A lot more personal, you know. We'll see, you know. And it keeps on television still, you know. Everybody says they're cord cutters and the TV's going away. TV, how do I say that? TV is never going to go away. More video is being consumed now than ever in the past. It's where and how it's being, how you can gather that information. So it's being streamed, and we're doing everything right now. We're on broadcast television, we're on Pursuit, we're on Sportsman's Channel, we're on the Outdoor Network, we're on WFN, we're on streaming, we're on a bunch of Christian broadcasting networks. We're on, we're on a bunch of Bally Sports, which is like the Fox, or
Fox
Sports, distribution networks. And it's, you know what I mean? You then actually also on YouTube and on YouTube.
That's incredible.
That's all. It made it a lot harder now. You know what I mean? Because you got to make all these very generations. We used to make, when we used to do TNN, this was years and years ago, and TNN and ESPN actually had a very large audience, about an audience of 80 million. And this was during the in-fisherman years, and we would air one show and we'd garner, a million views on that one broadcast, that one day, one show.
Crazy.
And
That is crazy.
yeah, it really was. Boy, but you know what? It worked really good was gathering magazine subscriptions. You'd run a commercial
Yeah.
on that with 80 million. You wouldn't believe it. The
Yeah.
cash register would just ring. It was just unbelievable because we do these subscription drives, and I used to make the commercials. And
Yeah.
commercials were garnering these different spots, and it was just amazing. On you know what I mean? Where we get, you know, you get 15,000, 10,000. It was very, very common to do 8 to 10,000 subscribers in a weekend.
Jeez, that's
Wow.
awesome.
I know.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
quick.
YouTube can't touch that.
No.
No,
No, it can't.
I know. Even to this, well, I guess it can if you're in the right. If you're
Yeah.
you're the right
It can, yeah.
YouTuber, I guess. Whoever they
Yes.
all of them do get that. Those are fabulous numbers. It's a pretty amazing to me. Yeah, yeah. And we're getting
No, I don't think in the musky world. There's not enough of us to get those kind of views.
No, no. So it keeps us really busy, and we're still playing to this day. Keep on grinding them out. Grinding out more editorial content. Actually, when I'm down here, I'm actually writing. It's not like I actually work.
Really?
I work afar.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually can be in Monday morning meetings by Zoom, and
Yeah. Yep.
then I'm writing as well. Well, actually, I'm writing English
Sure.
plus programming as we speak. Actually, and working on some of that.
We know you're a workaholic, James.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that. We all know that.
Yeah,
It's pretty incredible.
yeah. Well, it's fun. It's fun doing it. You know, when it stops being fun, that's not going to be a good thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
For sure. Going back to what you said you really enjoy was like the the production aspect and the making of commercials. And I just I grew up watching this stuff, and one of the commercials that really stuck out to me, well, a couple of them. One was, of course, where Al was doing the Trilene commercial,
He flipped the
and
throat
you're
out of the boat,
down
yeah.
on. Yep, he's leaning on the wood timber that was flooded timber, and the log breaks, and he falls right in the drink, and he's like, "That's why I use Trilene."
That was
legendary.
an accident, and he just came up.
Right?
Actually, that was an accident when we did
No, really?
decided to use it. He said, "Let's just use it." Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's it.
yeah.
Oh
That
my
was
gosh.
awesome. That one, and then the other one I remember well was a little after that was a Minn Kota commercial, and I want to say it was Al, Roland Martin, and I think Hank Parker, and it was I think it was an ad for a transom trolling motor,
Yeah.
which is a little strange for those two guys other than Al.
Yeah.
But at any rate, it was talking about the 80-pound thrust, no, it was at the time it was 74 pounds of thrust. I think it was a 24-volt system.
Yeah.
And then Roland and Al fall out of the boat, and Al, they kind of pop their heads up out of the water, and he says. Hank says it's a 74 pounds of thrust, and Al's like, it felt more like 80. Or something like that. I mean, those were classic, high production, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
commercials that just, stuck with me all these years. So.
Yeah. Those were. Yeah, I
Funny.
remember working at the agency. That was Dick Wood and Company. Is the guys that we used to work with those guys who actually. Actually, the weird thing is, I think Al just spoke to Dick Wood, which is interesting that you bring that up.
Sure.
Wow.
Small world.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
The one other piece that comes to mind was the Angling Edge intro that you guys had for several years. The one where you coined the phrase, "Sometimes you just gotta make them bite."
Yeah.
That was legendary, dude. I love that commercial.
That was the intro.
The intro,
of
yeah,
the show.
yeah.
Was that
The
the one-
intro,
the
yes.
intro where you come out of space and it was sort of like
Yes,
like coming down through the clouds. Yeah,
that was tremendous.
Then it's-
Tremendous intro.
yeah, that was.
My buddies and I in high school, I think we were saying that line when we were out fishing.
That's awesome.
Sometimes you just gotta make them bite. It's funny.
Good Good stuff, James. Man, this
Absolutely.
is we could definitely we need to do this again because we can go on and on. There's a lot
On and
more
on.
to tell.
We need to get fishing. That's what we need to do this year, James.
Yes, we do. I do too.
Maybe.
I know we got to get on the couple of different missions. I know what they are too.
Yeah,
Got some good ones lined up.
I like it. Well, I'm.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah,
fish
interested.
Minnesota more this year, Robbie and I.
Oh, yeah?
So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's the
we have
plan.
to.
Boy, it's really unbelievable. I mean, it's the yeah, fishing's been really, really good. You know, and I don't. It really is. Fishing is probably better now than it's been in a long, long time. I think, you know, which we got to still maintain our management philosophy to maintain these fisheries into the future. You know, especially with the new technology coming on, and because anglers today,
Yeah.
it's sort of interesting that people don't fish where fish are not the way they used to. It used to be a
Very good point.
of the anglers that could really go find fish, but today's day and age, and a lot more are very, very knowledgeable, astute anglers, and you see it today even with these young guys, like in the professional bass and walleyes, and you know what I mean. These young guys come in and they just clock 'em.
Clean up.
Yeah, they really do, and it's all about a lot of, you know, they're pretty knowledgeable of using their electronics to go find them, and they do. You know what I mean? This forward-facing side imagery. You know, I was talking to Kevin Van Dam. I had to go down and speak at this thing at Bass here last year, and Kevin was telling me, says that these guys utilize their electronics like in those Great Lakes fisheries. They don't even fish. They don't practice.
Yeah.
They don't fish and practice.
Drive.
They drive. They just drive and drop coordinates, and they come back. We'll figure out how to catch them later. They just go.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's
Well, I spoke
really
them.
amazing because Kevin says I can't do that. I still can't get my mindset to go. You know what I mean? But that's the way
It's not.
angling
You know,
is today. You know.
it's not so fun. I don't know. I don't like that. That's just. Ugh.
Right.
It was easier just fishing a weed edge.
What's it?
You know, just fishing a weed edge.
Even
You know.
they say, you know, like this forward-facing sonar. You know what I mean? When you look at that, and I've been using it a lot the last 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I've learned so much of actually how these fish move and how fast they're moving. They never sit still. When you
Incredible.
look at them on its 2D sonar, and it seems even they come across and they look like they're sitting like this. I mean,
Yeah. They're not.
There's a marker right there, but that isn't the case at all. They're milking
No.
around and they're moving, and it's just unbelievable. I was out with my brother Willie, and I'm fishing for smallmouth, and we're throwing top water and jerk baits, fishing really, really fast. And this little lake called Clearwater, you're sort of familiar with it, is right over by Mille Lacs. Anyway, and I come across this point, and I got the forward, and I'm scanning out in front of the boat, and I'm looking at all these fish, and I said, Willie, these got to be smallmouth, so we're not catching them. So I pick up a really light tube, and I throw it out there, and I watch the tube drop, and I see the fish actually follow the bait down, and he swims up to it, and then he just tips up and pick the bait up off the bottom. I pinned the boat into place and proceeded to catch any fish that was around us with dead sticking a tube, and I had to sit there and throw it out to it, watch the fish, and to the point where Willie had never really used forward-facing sonar that much. And he said, let me do this, you know what I mean? I'm just waxing them. And he said, you know what I mean? You just throw it out there and just dead stick, don't move the bait. The interesting thing was, in a short order, we probably caught, 8 or 10 of them. And I'm on the shallow flat. It's anywhere 5 to 8 foot of water. And it's the tip of a hard bottom point. In a matter of 20 minutes or so, we caught a number of them. The fish either spooked or moved off, and I went back and forth over the whole area. The fish just disappeared. They just disappeared. They move that fast. And even like forward-facing sonar, that's where these guys are going to get really good at, is using it for deep weed edge fishing. It's incredible, not only for finding fish, but to find the density, the best weeds and the density of weeds. When I can sit there and scan, I did a piece earlier this year with Al. It's actually going to air this year. We were flipping Tokyo rigs like on Gull Lake, my home lake.
Cool. Yeah.
We have deep coontail beds in there that never were in this lake before. You know what I mean? They got the zebra mussels. Now all of a sudden we have weeds growing to 23 feet of water in deep coontail mats that are growing into 17, 18 foot of water. But what I'm using it for is driving around, and you're pitching into because you can see these big coontail
Stop.
mountains,
Sure.
and you're actually flipping right into the densest part of these coontail mats. So it isn't just, they say forward-facing sonar is just for, finding fish or head hunting fish. I don't think that's what it is. I think people are going to find more and more things.
Expand.
Yes,
Yeah.
expand their knowledge into how it can be actually used. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
for walleyes and like muskies, and and you
Mhm.
what some of these guys are doing with muskies up here, with it
Right.
primarily way they're going finding them. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
go out there fishing reverse, fishing from the inside out, looking for muskies suspended off structure. The exact
Yep.
same thing with walleyes. The exact same thing is going on. Almost all the walleye tournaments, the professional walleye tournaments up here, dominated with that.
Yeah. Yeah, like on leech and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they're fishing with slip floats, and leeches, or a drop shot rig, fishing for suspended fish. I mean, it's pretty intriguing. It really is.
Yeah,
So
it's an interesting time.
I know that's what keeps me sort of into it. I think the more and more
Very
you see,
cool.
the more you figure it out you didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good point.
The more you know, the less you really know.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Very true.
yeah.
Well, I suppose, James, we should cut you loose on this Valentine's Day evening.
Yeah, no kidding.
What my wife is doing downstairs, she's doing something down there. I don't know. I got to prep dinner here, actually.
Sounds good. Well, we really appreciate it, James.
Absolutely, it was my pleasure, gentlemen. We got to get together anytime you want to give me a ring. I'm around.
Yep,
Well, we're
absolutely.
coming up to Minnesota this year, so look out.
We got to get a musky bite.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Musky bite somewhere.
All right, well, we will cut you loose here, James. Thank you so much for all your insight and information and telling us your, at least parts of your story. That's quite a story to be told for sure. I'm just happy that we were able to capture just a little slice of this for us to all watch this over and over again. So very cool.
It is. It's
also, just a reminder to check out the Musky Expo coming up in Minnesota. Looking forward to that, March 10th, 11th, 12th. And that's pretty much all we got for you,
And
Robbie.
it's winter time, so obviously Angling Buzz is rolling and Angling Edge is rolling right now, right? Every week.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
so you can find that right on YouTube the same day, right,
Yep.
James?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
We got 2 new shows going up every week. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, awesome. That was a fun time. Guys, thank you so much for watching, viewing, listening. You can find this on Podbean or obviously watch it on YouTube here. Thank you so much for watching. That was a good time.
We'll see you guys
We'll
later.
do it again.
All right.